This is William Michael of the Classical Liberal Arts Academy, and in this talk we're going to continue reading and reflecting on Aesop's famous fables. In today's talk we'll read and reflect on Aesop's fable of the leopard and the fox. The leopard and the fox. Let's read the fable together, paraphrase it to make sure that we understand all of its content clearly, then consider what the moral lesson is that Aesop is teaching us through this fable, then consider the characters that Aesop chooses to use and what they reveal to us about this lesson, and then use them to reflect on how we can apply this lesson in our own lives so that we can live a good and wise life in the present generation. Let's read the fable of the leopard and the fox. The leopard, one day, in the hearing of the fox, was very loud in the praise of his own beautifully spotted skin. The fox thereupon told him that, handsome as he might be, he considered that he himself was yet a great deal handsomer. "Your beauty is of the body," said the fox. "Mine is of the mind." This is Aesop's fable of the leopard and the fox. So very simply, we have two animals in this fable, a leopard and a fox. And we know that leopards are famous for their spotted skin. Men even make luxurious goods out of the skin of leopards. And so we have here a leopard who is boasting of the beauty of his skin, of his appearance, boasting of his spotted fur. The other character in the fable is a fox. And while I think foxes are one of the most beautiful animals, they're not necessarily valued for their physical beauty. Normally when we think of foxes, we think of cunning, sly fox. Anyone who lives on a farm understands this, because foxes are real pests on the farm. As pretty as they may look, they're dangerous predators. And they seek out smaller animals on the farm. Chickens, baby animals like lambs and baby goats, smaller animals like rabbits, maybe even household cats and things like that. Foxes prey upon smaller domestic animals. But their reputation for being cunning comes from the difficulty that farmers have of keeping them out of their chicken coops and rabbit hutches and barns and things like that. The foxes are cunning. They get in even when things are well secured. They find ways to get in and do their damage. They're cunning. And this is the character of a fox. And so we have these two characters, the beautiful spotted leopard and the cunning fox. And this one day in the fable, this leopard is praising his famous appearance, not saying anything false, because the leopard truly is one of the most beautiful of all animals. But the leopard is admiring his spotted fur, his beautiful spotted fur. And again, we have to acknowledge that the leopard truly is beautiful, stunning to look at, praising his appearance. But the fox doesn't think that the leopard's praise is just, because as the fox says, this excellence of yours is in your skin. And there's much more to an animal than the animal's skin. The mind of an animal is much more valuable than the skin. And let's just think about that for a minute. The leopard is actually hunted by man because of its skin. Its beauty actually attracts trouble. And so it's admiring that which actually brings it into danger. Whereas the fox argues that his intelligence, his cunning, is something much more praiseworthy and desirable than the leopard's skin. The cunning and intelligence of the fox saves his life, whereas the beauty of the leopard's skin puts his life in danger. And the fox concludes this fable with the saying, "Your beauty is of the body," said the fox, "but mine is of the mind." So we have this contrast between the body and the mind. And the suggestion of the fox is that the mind is more important. The mind is superior to the body. And therefore, beauty of mind is more desirable than beauty of appearance. In the Catholic faith, we're taught, very interestingly, that man is a creature composed of both body and soul. Man is a creature composed of body and soul. And we're also taught in the Catholic faith that the soul is more important than the body. Many of the decisions that we make in life do harm to the soul in an effort to preserve the body. Or many of the decisions we make attempt to please the desires and needs of the body rather than the needs of the soul. And the Church teaches us that the soul is more important than the body. And a wise man is given these two possessions to trade with in this life, and he will choose to spend the body to enrich the soul, whereas a fool will spend his soul in order to please or preserve his body. And this is really the nature of sin. The nature of sin is to trade what is more valuable for what is less valuable. That's really what sin is. To trade what is more valuable for what is less valuable. The soul is more important than the body. Yet, if we're to look at people's daily schedule and daily activities, if we were to look at what people spend their time and energy and money on, what would we find? Would it appear from the records of what people do with their time, their attention, their energy, their money, and so on, would it appear that each person believes that the soul is more important than the body, or would it appear that they believe the body to be more important than the soul? There are people who will spend on a vacation more than it would cost to send a child to school for a year. There are people who will spend more money on a dinner than they will on a book. A book they could read for their whole lives, that would benefit them for their whole lives. They'll choose a meal that will please their tongue for a few minutes and be gone. This trading of what is valuable for what is not valuable is really what sin is. Jesus asked the question, what would it profit a man to gain the whole world? What profit would there be if a man traded his own soul to gain the whole world? What profit would he gain by possessing the whole world if he had to trade his soul for it? And he uses that example because everyone knows the answer to that question, that it would profit a man nothing to trade his soul for even the whole world. He uses that example to show us that it's even more unreasonable for us because we exchange our soul for things that are infinitely less valuable than the whole world. Our trade is even worse than that man's trade. So the fox tells us that beauty of mind is greater than beauty of body, and therefore we shouldn't concern ourselves with promoting or trying to preserve the beauty of our body, but rather we should seek to develop and preserve the beauty of our minds. And obviously this is the teaching of every wise man. The Bible in the book of Proverbs says of women, beauty is deceitful and charm is vain, but a woman who fears the Lord will be praised. I think I've got that quote right. You can look it up. Beauty is fleeting, maybe it's fleeting, and charm is vain, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. And so we can see this comparison. If you think about women, there are women who make themselves very beautiful at great expense, whether it's exercising, buying themselves all kinds of clothing and makeup. There are women who go to great expense to make themselves appear beautiful, and yet they make no investment at all in the pursuit of wisdom, and so they are all beauty on the outside, but on the inside, in their souls, they're empty and ultimately unhappy. And they'll even go as far as selling or trading their soul to try and use their body to gain happiness. They have life backwards. If they would invest in developing the beauty of their souls, they would find that nature has already made their body beautiful enough for its purposes, and that there'd be no concern for the body. The body, by God's grace, is already beautiful enough for its purpose. And it would be far more valuable, far more satisfying in life for a woman to cultivate a beautiful soul, a beautiful mind, than a beautiful body. And the same is true of men. We can look at men and see the same thing. We see men investing incredible amounts of time and energy and money to try to make their bodies look impressive. Buying fine clothes, exercising, watching what they eat, all so that they can have an attractive appearance in their physical bodies, while completely neglecting the cultivation of their souls. And what's ultimately most foolish about this investment in appearance is that the attractiveness of young men and women, no matter how hard they try, fades like a flower. No matter how hard they try, no matter how much they invest, no matter how much they work, our physical appearance will decline and fade. Whereas this is not true of the soul. The soul does not get to a point in life and then begin to decline. In fact, old age is considered to be the time of great spiritual achievement, when men are at their wisest and most virtuous. They've got a life full of experience. They're free from most of the foolish passions and desires of their youth. The greatest of men's works as men, as rational creatures, the greatest of their works can be done in older years of life, when the body has already begun to fade. Investing, making decisions, sacrificing what's valuable for a short-lived attractiveness of the body is the essence of foolishness. And what do people get for all of their attractiveness? What do they get but trouble? What do they get but trouble? What do they get but sorrows, frustration, and so on? What do they get for all their effort to make themselves physically attractive? What do they get for it? Nothing good. Nothing good. And even if a woman, let's say, succeeds in making herself physically beautiful and attracting a man, if that man is attracted to her for her physical beauty, what happens when that physical beauty begins to fade naturally? What kind of relationship is the woman even seeking? What kind of man is the woman actually seeking? And the same thing is true of men. We see this attention to physical appearance, to outward appearances, is foolish. It's a waste of time. It's vanity. Whereas beauty of mind is excellent not only through old age, but for all eternity. After all, we're going to receive glorified bodies at the resurrection anyway. It doesn't make much sense to take great pains to care for and adorn the body when it's going to fade and die in a relatively short time and be replaced with a glorified body after death. It doesn't make much sense in this life to invest in the body, but rather, if we invest in the soul, we will attain, by the grace of God, to the resurrection, and will enjoy the reward of a glorified body, not for the indulgence of sinful desires, not for romantic relationships, but for eternal happiness as human beings, free from sin, free from temptation, and enjoying the presence of God forever, body and soul. Jesus warned his disciples in the Gospels. He said, "Do not be afraid of men who have the power to kill the body." Don't be afraid of men who can kill the body. Don't be afraid of losing your life. Jesus said, rather, fear the one who, having killed the body, can also cast the soul into hell. That's who you should fear. This concern for the body, this fear of pain, fear of discomfort, fear of sickness, fear of death, these are problems for worldly men, not for Christians, not for those who claim to believe in the resurrection of the body. What is death if we're guaranteed resurrection? What is sickness if we're going to die anyway? What is sickness if we're promised resurrection? Does it really matter which disease you die from when you finally die? All that matters is whether you die in the grace of God. That's all that matters. It doesn't matter how old you are when you die. It doesn't matter which disease ultimately takes your life. All that matters is that you die well. You die with your soul rightly cared for. The condition of your body is relatively insignificant. And for the sake of our souls, we learn in the Christian life to deny our bodies, to discipline our bodies, to make our bodies and the desires of our bodies, to make them subject to the needs of our souls. That's what it means to be wise. And so the fox teaches us that if we have to choose between a beautiful body and a beautiful mind or soul, the mind is greater. We shouldn't boast about the beauty of body, which is temporary and quickly fading. We should rather seek and take healthy pride in soundness of mind, in beauty of mind, in nobility of spirit, in virtue of soul. Virtuous soul is what it means to be magnanimous, to have a great soul. That's what we should be concerned with, not to be great in body or appearance, but to be great in soul. And so this is the moral of this fable, that we should concern ourselves with excellence of soul and not take pride in excellence of body. And there's much more that can be said. If we get more philosophical, we can go into deeper philosophical issues. We can talk about essence versus appearances and so on. There's lots that we could talk about in light of this fable, but let's keep it simple since we're studying this in a moral philosophy course intended for young children. And let's just say, pursuing an excellent mind is better than pursuing an excellent body. How can this fable help us in everyday life? Well, we have decisions to make every minute of every day. We have decisions to make every minute of every day. What are we going to do with our time? Like I said before, if we look at someone's schedule, does the schedule suggest that they care more for their soul or for their body? Our time should reflect our commitment to cultivating our soul. The Church recommends for us the Liturgy of the Hours, for example, the study of sacred scripture, the recitation of the Rosary, meditating on the mysteries of the Rosary. We're invited to celebrate daily Mass and to receive communion as frequently as possible. These things are offered to us daily for the perfection of our souls. But what do we choose to do? We only have so much time each day. We only have so much energy, so much attention, so much money. What do we do with the resources that are in our control? Are we investing them in excellence of mind? Or are we wasting them in pursuits of excellence of body? Maybe not even excellence of body, maybe just gratification of the body. But we have to look at the things every day that are in our control. Our time, our attention, our energy, our possessions, and ask ourselves, does it appear, if someone was to audit our personal finances, daily schedule, diet, etc., would they judge the person to be one of excellent mind or one trying to be great in body? So we have to make choices in all things that we control to seek excellence of mind. And to do that, I've already mentioned, we have the Church, which shows us how to cultivate excellence of soul. We also have the teachings of the wise men and philosophers, like Aesop here, that show us how to think and study, to become wise, to understand the causes of things in the world, to understand what things truly are, not just to know things by lazy appearances, but to study and understand the real nature of things, the causes of things, the order that exists in the world, and so on. This is the study of philosophy. This fable teaches us to devote ourselves to the study of theology and philosophy, to the discipline, to the denial of our bodies for the benefit of our souls. And this is a challenge for us every minute of every day, not to make ourselves like the leopard, sitting around boasting about our skin or our appearance, but like the fox, wise and prudent, filled with understanding and cunning, virtuous of soul. This is what it means to be great, especially as human beings, made in the image and likeness of God for eternal happiness, not for short-lived bodily pleasure. This is Aesop's fable of the leopard and the fox. I hope that's helpful. God bless.